Sometimes you find something in a kid's game that makes you think, that's definitely not meant for kids. This is why today we're diving into 10 shocking discoveries that were found in kids' games. Splatoon 2. Thanks to Little King for submitting this discovery on the Oddheader Discord. I've previously covered the Splatoon games before for some rather unsettling screams and ghostly laughs that randomly appeared in multiple areas of the game, including one the game's director claimed to know nothing about. The latest discovery to disrupt the cherry-colored ink-splattered battles of 2017 Splatoon 2 was found just last year, when the modder Diam extracted the game's textures and got a closer look at the t-shirt that the shop owner Gelfonso wears only on Tuesdays. Taking a look at the shirt texture, the red splatter appears to have text in the game's Inkling language, which Tumblr user Jace Valaire unfortunately managed to decipher. Using Jace's guide, Rossikas on YouTube translated the shirt text to reveal this hidden message 5 years after the game's release that says, "You." Yep, that's not a joke. The Splatoon shirt really says, you when translated. Considering this went unnoticed for 5 years, whoever did this one really managed to pull one over on Nintendo and the ESRB. According to the game's art book, the shirt is actually called the rounded "You Suck" shirt. If that's what the shirt was supposed to say, sounds like somebody missed the memo. You never know what you're going to find next when it comes to finding crazy discoveries in the world of Splatoon. Hello Neighbor. Thanks to DevinsWorldYT for submitting this discovery on Oddheader.com. Hello Neighbor is a stealth horror game released in 2017, where players try to break into their neighbor's residence after hearing screams coming from the house, as you try to sneak into the basement and find out what he's hiding down there. Despite the dark premise, the game has an E10+ rating, with no jump scares, weapons, or death sequences, and when the neighbor actually catches you, you simply respawn across the street. According to the CEO of the game's publisher TinyBuild, Hello Neighbor was made for the Minecraft generation, and the developer toned down the game as much as possible so the game would appeal to children, though they may have wanted to do a better job when it came to leftovers found in the files of the game, as in the data of the game are voice lines that don't seem appropriate for a kid's game.
Jesus!
Even crazier, these files can still be found in the game today, 6 years after its release. Which, considering by 2020, over 30 million kids ages 8 to 16 had already downloaded the game at this point, you'd think the developers would have removed them by now.
Come here, you big
Minnie and Friends, Yume no Kuni wo Sagashite. Yume no Kuni wo Sagashite, or Searching for the Land of Dreams in English, released only in Japan in 2001 for the Game Boy Color. Although I played the game to get this footage here, since I don't speak Japanese, I had no idea what was going on. Besides, you play as Mickey Mouse's iconic girlfriend as she searches for what I assume is the Land of Dreams, and is helped by some sort of sentient diary thing. Hardly any information or documentation about the game can be found online written in English, except about a lewd discovery that's apparently been data mined from the game, as in the data of the game are several developer messages that I doubt the House of Mouse would ever approve of, with one of the messages calling one of the other developers dim, adding, "Don't give out debug sheets that don't make sense. They're too hard to understand. Touch yourself and go to sleep." Damn, not the kind of roast I'd expect to find in a game starring Minnie Mouse. Another message was found in the data as well, reading in all caps, "I want to touch boobs." They also added that they've been busy and irritated, that they want to finish fast. This is a part-time job, and they got tired staying up all night. I think we know why they were staying up all night. Also in the data of the game is an extremely long block of text that appears to be a rambling diary entry, most of which is lost in translation, but appears to be written by someone depressed and disillusioned with the world, saying they believe all humans are evil, and wondering if they can adapt to the rottenness of society. Sir, this is a Wendy's. I mean, this is a Minnie Mouse game. I'm starting to think Minnie Mouse's Land of Dreams is a land of nightmares. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Thanks to Mike for submitting this discovery through Oddheader.com. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror released in 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. It was a pretty solid entry in the franchise starring the Star Warrior, featuring a Metroidvania style of gameplay and 4 different colored Kirbys. In the game, a mirror world in Dreamland makes any wish it reflects come to life. However, it copies the mind of some mysterious dude and now the world is evil. It's up to Kirby again to save the day, although it seems at one point Kirby was originally going to fail this task rather horribly, as in the files of the game is a cut screen that features our little pink hero slumped over dead in a pool of blood. There's also Japanese text on the screen that according to fan translations goes something like, "Escaped dead. I knew it was impossible. Something came out." Well, certainly something came out. Impossible to believe this could have ended up in a kid's game. Impossible too because Kirby is immortal depending on which fans you ask, as death screens for the character usually just show him falling asleep. Whereas on this screen, there's no question that Kirby looks dead as hell. This unused screen looks like it could have been intended as a game over screen, as somehow the team originally thought the scene would have fit the brightly colored adventure. Unless Kirby is actually just swimming in a puddle of Pepto-Bismol. Removing this was probably the right call. Spider-Man. Thanks to Honeymoon for submitting this discovery on Oddheader.com. 2000 Spider-Man was the first 3D game to feature the web slinger, another instant classic from Tony Hawk Pro Skater developers Neversoft at the height of their game. Released for the PlayStation, Game Boy Color, and later ported to the N64, Dreamcast, PC, and Mac. The title was one of my favorites as a kid and takes the web slinger on a mission to clear his name after a lookalike Spider-Man steals a new invention from Doc Ock. Though Spidey isn't the only one in this game who has to save his good name. As in the data for the home computer versions of the game, there's some more than unkind references to a developer named Matt Duncan, calling him and saying he needs to be fired immediately, but not before being kicked in the nuts, and also that something's wrong in the state of Denmark. What does this have to do with Denmark? And apparently that's not the only offense, as there's also notes that Matt up the Rhino, which leads to another request to fire him, but not before kicking him in the nuts again. Here I was thinking the swear words being punched out on the password screen was pushing it, and after countless expletives and more demands to fire Matt, there's also the question of who's been smoking crack today. Clearly somebody. Hopefully this was all a joke, and I did talk to one of the heads at Neversoft before, so if I had to guess, they probably kicked Matt in the nuts. Snail Bob. Thanks to Boyliker for submitting this discovery on Oddheader.com. Snail Bob is a series of mobile games where you help bob across the environment by solving some simple point-and-click style puzzles. Snail Bob is essentially as innocent as it gets, rated ages 4+ on the Apple App Store. Something, however, was found in the files of the game that appears to be the last thing that would be appropriate for such an age group. As in the files of the game can be found what initially appears to be a normal camouflage texture, but if you look closer, you can see the shapes that make up the camouflage are bodies in varying positions that appear to be ripped straight from the Kama Sutra. Well, that's one way to make camouflage, I guess. I was able to personally determine by decompiling the game that this image appears to be used for the camouflage effect that can be seen over the letters for the developer Hunter Hamster in the opening screen that appears throughout the series, which is certainly an interesting decision, considering they could have, just used actual camouflage. Wild Woody. 1995's Wild Woody is a platformer released on the Sega CD, and perhaps the only video game where you play as an anthropomorphic pencil, destroying enemies and obstacles with your eraser butt. The game is rated kids to adults, a category that was renamed in 1998 to the E for Everyone rating we know today. Most of the game is about as kid-friendly as you'd expect, but if you were to hold a button combination using two controllers to activate a hidden debug mode, then use the free movement mode, you could find a surprising Easter egg by collecting the normally impossible to reach power-ups on the stage Pirate World Act 2 in a specific order. After doing so, normally the player can open up the sketchbook and draw a mermaid who can assist you through the level, but having collected the specific sequence of power-ups. This time, when you draw the mermaid, she appears completely topless, normally without this sensor bar. Oh, I guess that's why the game's called Wild Woody. Albert Odyssey, Legend of Eldean. The Legend of Eldean is the only title in the JRPG series Albert Odyssey that was released in North America, which came out for the Sega Saturn in 1996. It's a pretty child-friendly story that follows the orphan Pike and his talking sword Cirrus on a journey to find a cure for his sister after she's been turned to stone by an evil magician. Like many JRPGs at the time, there's very little voice acting, and most of the story is told through text, though there are some very interesting files that can be found if you rip all the audio from the disc that doesn't appear anywhere else in the game. As in the audio data, you can hear this. Lovely. As well as an audio file of a woman who appears to be really enjoying herself. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's the addition of a man who also appears to be enjoying the same thing. Why the developers chose to include such risky audio recordings in a game rated kids to adults was actually revealed in an issue of an extremely obscure video game magazine that I managed to find called Foul from the early 2000s, where the head writer of the US localization team revealed the sounds were included as an Easter egg for clever Saturn owners to find, even revealing those lewd sounds on the disc were originally a lot longer. Well, at least they had some restraint. However, if you're already familiar with the localization team working designs, you're probably not surprised by any of this, as working designs has become controversial in recent years due to the fact they took massive liberties with several beloved Japanese games, filling them with off-color humor and pop culture references not in the original games that unfortunately haven't aged well in the eyes of many fans. Let's just say a couple of farts and promiscuous sounds might not be the most shocking thing in this game. Wait, your daughter just learned Ebonics? Oh boy. MapleStory. thanks to Malraf for submitting the discovery on Oddheader.com. MapleStory is a South Korean MMORPG released in 2003 for Windows and relaunched in 2017. The game is a side-scrolling 2D platformer where players can band together to kick monster ass and level up to gain new items. Its cheery, colorful vibes makes MapleStory popular with players of all ages, and in the 20 years it's been out, it's amassed more than 180 million players. With so many players, it was unlikely that anything out of the ordinary would go unnoticed, and sure enough, players found an image in the original version of MapleStory that didn't look like it belonged anywhere in a game rated E10+. As if you were to look closely at an image inside a picture frame, you'd see the side profile of a topless woman. To make things worse, the image wasn't just in one location, but could be found all throughout the haunted house and the Crimson Woodkeep areas of the game. The image was removed from Crimson Woodkeep and the haunted house was taken out with the game's relaunch. So for those of you rushing to play MapleStory ASAP, for research purposes, unfortunately you will be sorely disappointed. Around the World in 80 Days. Around the World in 80 Days is a Game Boy Advance tie-in to the 2004 movie of the same name starring Jackie Chan. Remember that classic? Probably not, considering it's one of the biggest box office flops of all time, losing over $100 million for Disney when adjusted for inflation. Somehow the tie-in game managed to be even worse, with critics lambasting it for being way too repetitive and difficult for children, despite being rated E and only being an hour long. A discovery, however, was found in Around the World in 80 Days that appears to be longer than the game itself, as in the day of the game can be found an extremely bizarre and long story called I Like Monkeys. Don't let the name fool you. The story is actually quite disturbing, as the narrator details buying 200 monkeys from a pet store and then takes them home where they punch themselves and the narrator in the genitals. The monkeys then violently threw themselves against the walls, which the narrator found amusing for about 3.5 hours, until the monkeys died, which made the narrator feel ripped off of his purchase of the 200 monkeys. The narrator then spent some time figuring out what to do with the 200 monkey corpses, which involves flushing them down the toilet, stuffing them in the freezer, or even trying to burn them. Finally, the narrator comes up with the perfect solution and decides to give the dead monkeys away as Christmas gifts. When the narrator notices their friends are only pretending to like the dead monkeys, they punch them in the genitals, ending with the simple statement of I like monkeys. Okay then. As if this story wasn't wildly inappropriate to include in a game based on a family film, it was found that the same story appears in 3 other games made by the same developer, Sapphire, from 2002 to 2004, which includes Hot Wheels Velocity X, The Hobbit, and Peter Pan the Motion Picture Event, based on the 2003 Peter Pan film, which was also one of the biggest box office flops of all time. The developer Sapphire seemingly got away with it and moved forward completely unscathed, though not for very long, as they released their final game shortly after Around the World in 80 Days came out. It's not exactly clear why they went under, but maybe it had something to do with all that monkeying around. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and if you know of any other shocking discoveries in kids games, submit through Oddheader.com, come join the Discord, or even give me a shout through Twitter or Reddit. And thanks again to Slippy Slides for helping get the footage in this video. Feel free to subscribe to him down below as well. Shout out to Angel the Fox, Ash Photography, BitWiff27, Chad Biscuits, Ed Moffat, Eddie Talkspin the Bleach Primid, Flex, Fox M Cloud 123, J1221J, Miss Arctic Foxy, Nerd Emoji, Puke Emoji, Clown Emoji, Cowboy Hat Emoji, Poop Emoji, Eggplant Emoji, Star of David Emoji, Phoenix 157, Rackman 22, Red Team Medic, Riley S, Robert Eisenman, Rolkop Mifula, Starcore 2, Terran Stock, Towerizer, and Child's E for their Patreon support. Stay tuned.